like listening to people argue about which one's real, the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus.
Oh, wow, that's really profound. As an atheist, can you give me a basis for...
I never said I was an atheist.
Oh,
It's Atheism 101. Insult, lie, deflect. Insult, lie, deflect. Every time you put an atheist in a position to answer a question, they deflect the question to you. That way they don't have to answer the question. All they have to do is say nah to your answer.
what are you? That's an atheist argument.
Listen, 1 second. Let me just make a statement. Grown men believing that fairy tales written by men thousands of years ago are actually real and historically accurate
Really?
is completely ridiculous.
Now, why would someone join a logical conversation about the existence of God and say this? Because they have no logic to bring to the conversation, so they bring emotion. Once I see this, I just hang up because I already know where this conversation is going. But let's see where he's going to take it.
Okay. How do you know that? How do you know that's the case?
What do you mean, how do you know that?
How do you know that that's the case? What are we supposed to go by?
The stories in the Bible are real.
I do.
Okay, how do you know that?
And here he is, never answering the question. All he did was deflect. How do you know that? Now he's no longer in the hot seat. He doesn't have to prove anything that he knows because now he deflected it onto the guy and asked him what he knows. Again, if it was me, I wouldn't have let him out that corner. You got to keep him in that corner. We let him off the hook when we answer questions after they make statements. If they make a statement, they have to prove it. They have to substantiate it. He didn't force him to prove it or substantiate it. Now he's back in the hot seat again.
Because if the Bible isn't true, then I don't have a basis for knowledge claims because I believe in the transcendental argument.
No, that's not how it works.
Now the caller is back in the safe space. He's no longer in the hot seat. So all he has to say is nah to the host.
Knowledge is based on reality, observation.
What does that mean? How do you know that knowledge is based on reality?
Because you cannot claim to know anything if you don't have any evidence or proof.
Okay, so you just restated that's a circle. That's a circular argument. How do you know that?
No,
that's
it's not a circular argument.
You literally just restated yourself. That's a circle.
Existence exists.
How do you know that? That's a circle.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so you don't even know the basics of epistemology you're trying to debate.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And this is the issue with most atheists. Their epistemology is trash, or they just don't have one. They might know what the word means, but they don't understand how to have an epistemology. They think their epistemology is just ad hoc. If your epistemology is ad hoc, like, you're a waste of time. You don't belong in philosophy.
Epistemology. What's your epistemology? I just believe it because it was written in a fairy tale.
Again, removing himself from the hot seat, so now he doesn't have to explain what his epistemology is. So now he's asking the host, what is your epistemology? And again, the host lets him out of the hot seat. We can't keep letting people out of the hot seat. If we have to go to the next caller because they keep lying, then so be it. But we're wasting time here.
Because the worldview grounds my basis for believing in logic, mathematics, universals, categories, all those things. That's the transcendental argument.
Yeah, but there's no basis for the proof if you don't have evidence behind it.
Again, putting the host in the hot seat, then saying nah to whatever response the host provides.
The evidence is that all evidences prove through the transcendental argument God's existence. You could not have evidences without epistemology, and you can't ground your epistemology without God's existence. That's the argument.
Well, what is God then?
The being described in divine revelation, the Trinity.
So how do you prove that?
Through the transcendental argument for the third time.
Transcendental argument. Describe that. What is that based on?
For the third time, if you don't have the existence of that type of a deity, you can't ground epistemology, metaphysics, or ethics.
You absolutely can. What do you think science is? Science is grounded in reality.
To be clear, science only measures something that's either physical or natural. God is non-physical and supernatural, so science can measure God. Your science can't even measure God. If you wanted it to.
I know what grounding means. You think just asserting things is a grounding. That's why you thought. That's why you thought circular. You don't even know what reality is. A metaphysical claim.
Reality is what is. Okay.
So that's a circular argument, which shows that you have no clue what you're talking about.
The issue is people use words, but they haven't substantiated what the meaning of those words mean. And then once you question them on the meaning of those words, they don't understand. They deflect and ask you to define it. Just saying reality doesn't mean anything. We have to figure out what is your grounds for what is real and what isn't. This particular caller says science is what grounds reality. But as I showed, science can only measure what is either physical and or natural, unless he's of the belief that nothing outside of physical world or natural world exists. Otherwise, we have to find a different unit of measure, because the one you subscribe doesn't measure what we're trying to measure. That's like asking how many carats does your brain weigh? We don't measure brains like that. We can't measure a brain like that. I can't tell you how many milliliters a rock is because we don't measure a rock like that. So you asking for us to measure God by science is illogical and a contradiction of the science. I think it's a very remedial position to sit in. It's difficult to expose someone's ignorance when they're never in the hot seat. When all they do is put other people in the hot seat, you can't expose their ignorance because you aren't asking them questions. And we saw here that once the caller was put in the hot seat, he immediately tried to get out of it. Insult, deflect, nah-uh. Insult, deflect, nah-uh is so remedial.